In that first 12 years of our marriage, up to about 2012, I began using crack cocaine, powder cocaine. I found where I could order bath salts, the illegal bath salts. I found where I could order those and have them delivered in my P.O. box.
Yeah.
It was time for it and pick it up. I was methadone, Suboxone. I had been in Suboxone clinics. At 2012, we had built a $265,000 home. I was like 31, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. Looking from the outside in, you would look and say, man, they got it going on, but my life was falling apart.
Let's be honest about recovery.
The rewards, the challenges.
Let's talk about our failures. We are flawed people, after all.
Let's challenge the stigmas that weigh us down.
Because while most of us are looked at,
few of us are seen.
Let's talk about addiction.
And how Christ overcomes our weaknesses.
Because we are loved.
Because we are loved.
Because we are loved.
We are loved.
We are
Because
loved.
we are loved.
Hi, I'm Jamie, and this is my story. I spent a large portion of my life in drug, alcohol, and pornography addiction that left me with a lot of loss, pain, and regret in my life. God used my circumstances to help show me that the most important thing in my life was my relationship with Jesus. Now I use my story to help encourage others and point them to Him, and to help others realize that there is hope and that change is possible.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Jesus Loves Addicts. We're glad you're here. I'm glad to be here. It feels like I've been gone for a century here and it's only been 2 episodes, but it's been hard. I love this, and I love to be back in this chair and about to embark on another wonderful story of redemption and recovery. Today we have a gentleman, Jamie Rutledge, who spent a long time in addiction, about 20 to 25 years in being addicted to drugs and alcohol. But as he puts it, and I'm kind of curious to take a look at this one too, and appreciate your courage, another addiction being pornography, and stated that he was introduced to that, sadly, at such a young age, around age 9 or 10. And I don't know how, uncommon that is, again, very sadly. So I appreciate that you bring that piece of the puzzle to the table. You have been sober now for about 3 years and 2 months, you said. And I love that you said, it's been the longest you've been able to make it. So that tells me you kept coming back and swinging, right? Which is awesome.
Sir,
and we're gonna hear how all that fits in. But as we always do, your story begins before the drug and alcohol kind of infects your life. Where does all this begin for you? What was home life like? And
well, for me, I'm gonna go back as early as around the age of 3 years old. Mm-hmm. I do remember I was a very shy, very withdrawn child. Wasn't very outgoing, but I was very curious. I was soaking everything up, taking everything in. And I remember my grandfather on my dad's side, he passed away when I was at the age of 3. And I never made an attempt to speak to him because of my shyness, and just being as withdrawn as I was. And I guess I was kind of insecure with myself, even at that young of an age. And so that early in life, I was extremely hard on myself for that. I remember my dad trying to comfort me the best he could. And it's like I had guilt and everything, and I was beating myself up.
from that young age.
From that young of an age.
Already feeling like you should have done more or said more.
Yes, I felt like I wasn't good enough in that area because I didn't reach out and make an attempt to try to speak to my grandfather. And I came to a realization that I would never have that opportunity again. So I do remember my dad trying to comfort me the best he could. But now I look back and I reflect back, and I know my dad was struggling with losing his dad. And in the middle of that, there I was, you know.
You needed him, but he was hurting.
And my dad, you know, I was born kind of, I had older parents. I was kind of the late crop, so to say. And my dad, I guess, he was born in 1940. So he was from the old school era where you're kind of tough. You don't cry. You don't talk about things. He was a wonderful man.
Yeah.
But there was no example of showing your emotions or learning to talk to people about things and share how you feel and work through things that type of way. So it was more of a holding, physical, comforting with not really any words.
And you needed words?
I needed something, I felt like, and I know I had my own struggles and issues that I didn't know how to express either, really, you know. So that began at that age, and as I got older, I had wonderful parents. I did. They were great. They did the absolute best they could.
Let me just pause you there just before, because you're already making such an interesting point, because your dad does sound like a well-intentioned guy and a good father. He's there, he's holding you, but that silence, that lack of words, there's something that I think is worth pausing there, because, you know, for anybody out there who relates to that, and I think I can relate to that sometimes as a father. I'm probably not real good at that. And so it's something I need to hear. The silence for a child who is struggling to make sense of things is a really dangerous place, because they don't get led. As parents, we are to lead, we're to help them figure this out. And so the silence can be so damaging there, because in that little child's brain who doesn't have anything to reference this from, it can really reinforce kind of negative stuff, as you're saying, right? So I really feel for that. And that's such already an important piece there, that you were not being taught kind of how to process. You were being taught how to shove down and stuff, right?
Yes, sir.
And even though they were well-intentioned parents,
yes, sir.
This was not out of cruelty or anything else. So
well, I think whenever you say, you know, that he was doing the best he could, yes, but even at 3, that's what was standing out to me, that at such a young age, not only was this loss felt that you internalized, but it was already recognizing that a need wasn't being met. And it wasn't because he didn't want to meet it. He honestly didn't know how.
Yes.
Which again leaves somebody who, as you're describing yourself, somebody who's beating themselves up already at this young age, it doesn't tell you
what to do,
not to do that, right? It just is so anyway, just worth a pause there. And I appreciate you bringing that detail in. So
I do, that is worth a pause, because it's important to realize, me as a child in that situation, not feeling like I got the response or what I needed from that, it almost puts up a wall to where in the future you're not as willing to reach out and make your feelings and emotions known. And as we get further into my story, there will be a reflection of that. In that, so as I began to grow older and move forward in my childhood, you know, my mom was she did the best she could too, but she was extremely, extremely overprotective, I feel like. I didn't really get to do a whole lot with a whole lot of people.
Were you an only child?
I was raised basically like an only child.
Right.
So when I say I was the late crop, I had I had 2 older sisters, Melanie and Rhonda. Melanie was the oldest, and then Rhonda was the younger, older sister. And I was born 14 years later.
Okay.
So I was completely unexpected.
So very little time together in the same house.
Yeah, very little.
Quickly.
Like I have a vague memory of her in the house when I was.
Well, that also ties in with your mom being, it's a little boy she never thought would come, and moms and their boys and dads and their girls, but extra protective makes sense.
So a little piece of information on that. So my mom, she had a lot of health issues. She had high blood pressure. She was on nerve medication. I think maybe some depression, anxiety medications. When she found out she was pregnant with me, she didn't believe it, but she went to the doctor, and of course, yes, you're pregnant. And she argued with the doctor, no, I'm not. So they come to the agreement that she is pregnant, and the doctor basically told my mom, said, there's no way you're going to have a normal child. You should have an abortion. And she said, no, I'm going to take what God gives me. She said, whatever God gives me, you know.
Which right away suggests that God was introduced to your life at an early age. Your mom was Christian?
Yes.
What about your dad?
Yes.
Same.
Yes.
Okay. So Christian household. Okay.
Yes. So I'm glad my mom.
Amen.
I'm here.
Yeah.
I thank God
We are
for that,
too.
you know. But that I'm sure was a huge scare for her.
Yeah.
And my dad has always wanted a boy. And so they were extremely excited that I came along.
Yeah.
I think part of, I developed trust issues, insecurity issues, rejection issues, I think. A lot of these things growing up, and I can see where me coming along being unexpected could cause this overprotection.
Yeah.
And, but, my dad he was a government employee. And as opportunities for promotion would come up, we would move. So mom, like I said, already been overprotective, and us moving several times in my younger childhood, I never really got to make any close friends. And it seemed like the few times that I did get to make some friends, something would happen between me and them, and it would break my trust. It'd be something. My toys would get stolen, or this or that. Some type of situation would arise, and I would get upset about it again. I was a very tender-hearted little kid, and I also felt that stemmed some trust issues there with other people, and that was at a very young age too. Now my dad, having a boy out of nowhere that he really wanted for his whole life and thought he would never have. He was big into sports and this and that. I feel like he set these expectations, and I was not a sports kid. I was not a sports kid. So I felt like in a lot of ways that I didn't live up to his expectations, that I wasn't good enough, because he would get me in T-ball or Boy Scouts even, and this and that. And it's like, even in the T-ball, they'd hit the ball, and I'd be out there in outfield, and I would be daydreaming. There would go the ball, and they'd be hollering, "Get the ball, get the ball!" I'm like, oh, I mean, it was not my thing.
Yeah.
And he was always loving and caring, but me realizing, I picked up on it, that I felt like I wasn't good enough, or just meeting his expectations of what he might have thought he wanted.
Did you pick up on it, or did you just interpret it that way? Either could be true. So like, what I'm really saying is, like, do you feel like your dad communicated disappointment to you either overtly or covertly, right? Sometimes we do it directly, sometimes just a feeling. Or did you, just being a guy that beat yourself up real hard, interpret it that way?
I'm glad you said that, because I literally think that I interpreted so much in negative ways. And then once again, not being having the communication there to clarify things.
Not being able to ask any questions.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I just assumed it was, and I tried to deal with it the best way I could.
Well, and a common thread is already feeling not enough. I'm not good enough. Not knowing how to verbalize that, but that's what we've touched on a couple of times, is that secret shame, and it's at early ages, and because it's shame, no one talks about it. You're not able to come out, even if you had been able to communicate, but you couldn't. Yeah.
And even, it's funny you say secret shame, and I know that term gets used, but in your case, it's and I think there's good reason to point this out. I think secret shame, there tends to be a shame that we don't want people to know about. In your case, you sound like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you weren't consciously hiding your shame from you. You didn't understand what was going on, and you're just interpreting the world as if I can't live up to this. Mm-hmm. But you don't really have a good grasp. In what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound like you really have a good grasp of. And it would make sense at your age, but of identity, of, who I am as a son, or as all that, right? And so your shame is building. It's not that you're intentionally hiding it from anybody. You're just feeling it and don't know what to do with it. Would that be fair to say?
Correct. I believe that's a correct explanation of it. I do. Yes, sir.
Okay. Really, it's interesting, and you may not have a clear insight to this, but it's really sad that wheel already got turning for you at such a young age that,
It was, yes.
Yeah. So, okay. So we move on from Little League that kind of reinforces that negative self-image of yourself, unfortunately, to some degree. And where do we go?
Well, I remember, at that point I was already struggling in a lot of areas in my life. I remember always having the feeling that I never really fit in. And like I had mentioned earlier, I was always very curious. Out of my curiosity, I remember I used to experiment with, I used to use the asthma inhalers at home. And I would blow out as much air as I could, and I would get as many puffs as I could at one time, and make myself lightheaded. And early years on those school buses, I was pretty small. I don't remember what age that would have been, but I remember the older kids passing the mini thins and stuff around.
Passing the what?
Mini thins, the weight loss pills that would have the ephedrine in them, and it would hit your head.
They used
It's
to
like
sell
a
in
stimulant.
the gas station, but I had forgotten all about them. They were a serious problem. We're about the same age, but it was definitely an issue.
They were using them like speed.
Yeah, taking as many as they could, and there was no checks and balances.
Yeesh.
You just walk into a gas station at 14 and could buy them.
And I was doing a lot of this, I think, to gain acceptance. But at the same time, I already at that young age had a lot of feelings inside that I didn't like feeling and dealing with. And that was me realizing it clicked in my brain. I said, I can take something and alter the way I feel.
That's kind of where I was leaning. To me, it sounded like even at a very young age, you were already trying to alter the way you felt with whatever. Because who taught you to do the inhaler?
I'd learned that myself just out of curiosity trying it.
Yeah.
So you're how old at this point?
Wow, I'm not even sure. That would have been, oh gosh, I don't even know.
Okay. Because I'm curious. So because you're already talking now about tampering with substances, albeit them legal, but misusing them. But I don't want to miss the pornography part of it, which sounded like it preceded that. Had that already started for you?
Yes. Of course, through older kids, the school buses, school magazines get passed.
Okay.
And Mom and Dad also had a satellite dish, one of the old ones that you got mashed about and it's got to move. And it was very rarely that I would get left alone at home. But I figured out I could go and mess with it.
Pick up
and
channels.
Mom wouldn't be gone long. I'd run over there and fix it and watch something, hurry up and put it back, and it made the desire get stronger and stronger to learn and watch more about it,
Can you talk a little bit about what that did for you? And what I mean by that is I think there's such a strong connection to how pornography can work and how drugs and alcohol work, right? When you talk, because you literally just said, you're starting to learn that substances can make you feel differently. But really that pornography hit, right? Those kinds of things are also hitting the dopamine kind of activation and all that stuff. Can you talk a little bit about similarities and or differences in those two things and how that worked for and against you?
Yes, it was very much so an addiction. It did stimulate something inside of me. You would get a rush, a feeling, very similar to the introduction of like a substance to the body. I don't know exactly how to explain it really and put it in the words, but it does something to a person that makes you desire more of it and want to continue the act.
Oh yeah.
And it's a very realistic addiction,
Yeah, absolutely.
So
No, it's one that it's extremely prevalent, but a lot of people don't really talk about it.
Yeah.
And another thing I like to throw in there too is that as I got older and started introducing the substances, the drugs, the alcohol, it increased the activity in the pornography addiction. When I would be using or drinking, I would become more active in that area as well.
So, when they talk about that, just literature-wise now, I want to kind of weigh this against your own experience. Typically, there's a lot of shame that can work its way in here, right? And this can be where we kind of start hiding that because of what it's linked to. And was that your experience, or was it normalized by these kids and you didn't really feel the shame, or was there already shame?
There was guilt, there was shame, there was like hiding, not wanting anybody to know. So that was like a heavy weight carrying that within itself.
Yeah.
Along with everything else.
Sure.
And it became a struggle. It became very exhausting and tiresome, even as a young child.
Now, did that? And I know I'm jumping ahead here. We'll come back, but did that become? You said as your drug and alcohol use increased, that increased, and I know that that is pornography. But did that also then transcend pornography? Did it become a sexual addiction where they're kind of women in and out? And
yes, it somewhat did. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. And that too is pretty common within the field of addiction.
It is.
Sadly.
Like I said, I've been 3 years, 2 months. Clean and sober now. And I help lead an open share substance abuse group now for men. And I talk to a lot of guys that have struggled with addiction issues and still are. And it's very prevalent. It's very common. That type of addiction goes right along with it. And I think it's something that does need to be brought out more into the open and talked about more, because there's a lot of people that struggle with that are ashamed to come forward and say they have an issue in that area.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the first things, and I always, I meant to say something, was that when you, Paul brought it like at the introduction, and you said, "Thank you for your courage," because that is what it takes, and it's a huge problem. So many people are battling it, but it is really hard to come out and say, not knowing who's going to watch, who's going to hear.
Yeah.
Hey, I struggled with pornography. I struggled with these sexual addictions. And I may word this wrong, and I might need you to, at any time did you find, because you said that when you used substances, you found that you needed it more. At any time did you get to a place where you realized you couldn't have one without the other, that now they kind of worked off each other? Am I saying that? Like,
I think so. I would say yes. It felt like it got to a point like they just went hand in hand.
Yes.
It's like when I knew I was gonna go get the substance and get high, already knew in the back of my mind that what was coming with
What
it.
was coming with okay, that's kind of what I wondered, if it had gotten to that point where it's like, okay, if where one is, there's the other, and almost like if people are able to stay sober and then they go into a relapse and it starts with the glass, well, immediately that's kind of linked to that, and you got to have them both.
You know, there's a very serious conversation to be had there at some point, because with lots of things, I mean, you know, we talk about the addiction, but the lifestyle really incorporates a lot of darkness. We've talked a lot on this show about how many people later in their addiction began to sell, right? Now we think of that and we just go ho-hum, that's part of the story. But the reality is it's very, there's not a lot of good moral filter when you're selling. You know, this is how it gets to the kids. This is how it does this stuff. But this is also where prostitution comes in, and the rampant, you know, people will do that, and the both sides of that ledger are getting darker, right? The people who purchase and the people who sell. And it's really just very heartbreaking. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm glad that you chose to see this, is because talk about it, because it really does put light on the darkness, if you will, of where this thing goes. And let me ask you a question. Again, I know I'm leapfrogging. In your 3 years and 2 months of sobriety, we know that kind of, it gets easier, but there's always struggles, correct?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Would you say, what has been harder for you to train your mind away from, the drugs and the alcohol or the pornography?
Well, this is that right there that will be probably something that I'll hit later on.
Okay.
The way that everything happened.
Okay.
It was kind of all at the same time. Thing when I really got serious about turning my life over to Jesus and getting serious about it. And when I recommitted my life, I kind of pretty much said, I'm done.
Yeah.
And that's where my new story started.
So how did, bring us through when it actually started? How soon after being introduced to that were you doing substances? What get us through school?
Okay, so I went through school and, you know, the basic stuff teenagers do. I had people sneaking me cigarettes and snuff and this and that. And, of course, I seized every opportunity. I began smoking at a really young age. I would sneak around the snuff cans and that was just the only act of rebellion that I could pretty much get my hands on at that time, I think. So that's what I did.
Parents knew nothing about it.
Oh, I got caught smoking.
I was going to say that. I know that your mama smelled cigarettes. I knew it.
I got busted one time that my dad had bought me a dirt bike. And I thought it was a bright idea. Before school every morning, I was going to go ride my dirt bike and go smoke me a cigarette and come back. And, of course, I'd spray cologne on me to try to cover it up. You know? So that was a dead giveaway right there. I got busted there. Several other times. I had a friend one time also that he had gotten rolling papers, and we rolled some oregano up. Just messing around, being silly. I had it in a wallet. And I had that in my wallet. My dad called the cops and had the cops come to the house, and they came to the conclusion that, hey, this is oregano, you know.
You know what's funny about that is that seems kind of humorous, which it is, and it seems very light and kind of whatever. But what's really kind of heartbreaking about that is that the ritual of it was already entertaining to you. Yes, that might have just been oregano, but this curiosity, the ritual of it was already there for you. That's kind of sad, right?
It is.
Because you're chasing something.
It is, yeah.
Well, and it is also extreme if you haven't had a whole bunch of issues that have been worked on and tried to be corrected. How old were you that he found this in your wallet?
That was middle school.
And his response was to call the police.
Yeah.
That's to me,
and
that's an extreme response. If you, God forbid, but if you found the same as your first,
that's interesting.
That's also going to be hard for me later if I need to come to you. If this was your response, and I'm dealing with a police officer in middle school, and I was just joking like that.
Did he come to you first, or that was just?
He did. He came to me and he wanted to know the thing was, who'd you get it from? Who'd you get it from? I wasn't gonna.
So you really called the police to see who was negatively influencing his son.
I think he was trying to pressure me into telling who was getting me the cigarettes. Where did I get the rolling papers?
Right.
And I wasn't gonna tell on anybody. That's just I was not.
Right.
You know. So.
Well, you also didn't make friends easily, so it would
few that
be
I felt like
really hard
to hang on to.
I that would be hard.
Yeah.
If I've already struggled to make any friends, and now I've got no.
Yeah.
That's a hard place to be for anyone.
What was? I don't mean to make. I mean, it's because it's serious. There's a lot of heartbreaking aspects to that story, but there's a humorous side. I mean, did the cops come? I mean, what did they?
They did.
What did they do? Did they question you? I'm just curious. I know that's just a side.
The cop came and they went through all the herbs in my mom's cabinet and like lit it and would smell it. And he finally found the oregano. He's like, he's smelling that. He's like, I think it's oregano.
Yeah.
And of course, that's what it was.
Right.
But it was, you know, there's a side where you want to laugh and pick and joke. And then there's the side that it was me acting out in an act of rebellion because I already had going through my mind. If I had something else to go in here, that's what it would have been, you know.
You know, I'm curious, the fact that you had an oregano cigarette, were you trying to convince your friends that it was marijuana? Were you trying to?
No, I don't know. I don't think. I honestly don't remember what I was doing. I just thought it was cool to have that. Okay. A rolling paper, you know? I was like, this is cool, you know, and it was like, I guess probably at that time, not many kids had a rolling paper.
Yeah.
And there's a chance that I may have been trying to convince somebody I got a joint or something. I really don't remember that, but that wasn't a good place to be. And I agree with what you said. You know, that right there, I felt very betrayed by my dad by calling the police officer. And that leads into another that I'm going to go into sharing.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm kind of at that point now, really, to be honest, because coming up at this point in my early teen years, I didn't want to submit to authority at all. I wanted to do things my way. I thought my way was better. And the correction that I did get from my mom and dad, it was more or less discipline and the lack of communication on why or explanations.
Just punishment without explanation.
A lot of it was a lot of butt whippings, which I dearly deserved. But there was no explanations behind a lot of it. And you know, I don't know, that left me, I feel like, with a lack of understanding in a lot of areas.
Wouldn't that have just compounded that you already felt like what you did or didn't do wasn't enough anyway?
Yeah.
And when you say that, just so I'm understanding, is that you might have done a couple things during the day, been late, done whatever, but you come home and you're disciplined without, hey, you're in trouble because your teacher called, or is that along the lines like just not knowing what you're being punished for in that moment?
Well, I would be corrected about what I was doing, but it's most of the time, but there was no sit down, let's talk about why are you doing these things? Let's get to the bottom of the root causes. And, you know, like we've already talked about, I had a lot of internal issues and struggles going on.
Okay.
My dad and I had developed issues where, like I said, me not wanting to submit to authority, we were always like butting heads. It was constant. It seemed like it never ended. I wouldn't want to do my homework. I wouldn't want to do my homework. So we were constantly going back and forth, and him and Mom would fight.
I was fixing to ask what were their dynamics like. If he was the disciplinarian and getting on to you, did she intervene to defend you?
I'd like to take a moment to recognize a major podcast sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by America's Thrift Stores, your go-to option for decluttering and giving back. If you have a closet bursting at the seams or a garage that's seen better days, we've got the perfect solution for you.
That's right. America's Thrift Stores makes it easy to clear out the clutter and make a positive impact in your community. Whether you're cleaning out your wardrobe, downsizing your living space, or just looking to give back, America's Thrift Stores has you covered.
And here's the best part. You've got options. Schedule a hassle-free home pickup, drop off your items at one of their convenient donation sites, or swing by an America's Thrift Store to donate in person. No matter which way you choose, you're making a difference.
Absolutely. Every donation you make to America's Thrift Stores directly benefits charities in your area, such as the Home of Grace and other fantastic organizations dedicated to helping those in need.
For example, donations made to America's Thrift Stores in southern Mississippi help the Home of Grace provide support and assistance to individuals facing drug and alcohol addiction. Your contributions make a real impact on their mission to provide freedom from addiction through Christ-centered recovery. So not only are you decluttering your life, but you're also helping build a stronger and more supportive community.
It's truly a double blessing. So what are you waiting for? Clean out that closet, clear out that garage, and make a positive difference in your community by donating to America's Thrift Stores.
Visit America's Thrift Stores online to schedule a home pickup, locate a donation site near you, or get directions to one of their store locations.
America's Thrift Stores, where giving back never goes out of style.
Well, actually, Mom was more of the disciplinary, and she would push Dad to enforce a lot of stuff, but she was the one that actually done the physical whippings and stuff, and she would try to push him to do more of the trying to work with me, like to push me to do my homework. He would try to sit down and try to work with me. What homework do you got? And he would do that role, and she would do the role of like scoring me and whipping and stuff. I think I only remember actually ever getting like one whipping from my dad, physical whipping. But she would put off on him the kind of try to communicate and talk, but once again, he didn't really have an understanding of how to do that.
I know, just thinking she's challenging somebody who is also very reserved and does. Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic.
So because of my dad's struggles to get along, and I've got to backtrack here for a second, but let me say this first. Because of my dad's struggles to get along, we came to a point at about the age of 14 where I told them I didn't want to live with them anymore. And I was serious. And I had it dead set in my head, I'm going to get out of here. So at the age of 16, I was able to legally move out in the state of Mississippi back then. So I did. I moved out and went and lived with my sister in North Carolina at that age. But backtracking a little bit, I wanna hit on my mom's side, her parents, my grandmother and grandfather, I would go out there and stay some in the summer. And in my early years in school, there was a lot of fighting and drinking and taking pills, and it seemed like we never knew 2 or 3 times during the week we may have to rush out there, and it was like 45 minutes away because the law wouldn't be out there because they're trying to.
I'm sorry, is it your grandparents were using pills and fighting and doing?
Yes, on Mom's side. A lot of alcohol, a lot of pills.
Yeah. And that's where you had moved to?
Well, no.
Okay.
This was, I got ahead of myself. I moved to North Carolina.
You moved to your sisters, but this is what your experience.
This is beforehand. I'm backtracking.
Okay.
This was something I forgot to include.
Yeah.
But my grandparents on Mom's side, there was a lot of tension there. And we had got called out there before. Grandma had tried to stab Papa with a knife, and she had a bruise on her arm where he blocked her. And so I grew up around that. It seemed like a lot of fighting there, a lot of fighting between Mom and Dad. And a lot of the fighting between mom and dad, I think, me not doing my schoolwork and just not wanting to do what I was asked to do. There were many nights that me being the child that was born later in life, I blamed myself for all that I did. And I said, I probably shouldn't have been born. Maybe maybe she should have had that. Maybe she should have had that abortion. But I bet if I wasn't here right now, they wouldn't be fighting like that. And I had all this stuff playing through my head. And there were many nights I'd lay there and I'd cry myself to sleep, and I never talked to anybody about it. And it was my own little internal battle. But once again, I had developed this idea of trying to bottle everything up inside and cope with it and deal with it the best way that I could.
Yeah.
Gosh, what a horrible, message. It sounds like you felt like you were a mistake, right? Rather than a blessing. Yeah, really sad.
And
so did your mom or dad use substances? Was there any?
No.
They
did not.
Just volatile anger.
Early in my younger years, they would smoke cigarettes. I remember I'm chewing tobacco. I remember Dad chewing tobacco. The Red Man.
Red Man Golden Blend was my dad's. And,
cigarettes. Ugh. I don't know if I might vaguely remember Mom smoking.
But no alcohol, just a volatile anger. They were.
It was just a lot of fighting.
A lot of that. Okay.
And there was a lot of that. My mom, one time, she was doing arthritis remedies, so to speak, one time, and I know she wasn't a drinker. And I heard her talking to a friend of hers on the phone about she had this certain raisin, and you soak it in gin, and it was supposed to be like an arthritis thing. And, of course, there's gin in the house, and it goes off in my head. I went and found that, and that was my first taste of alcohol. There, which, was a curiosity thing. And she wasn't a drinker. I know she wasn't. So there was that too, that I snuck in there and found that in her bedroom where I wasn't supposed to be when she had left one day to go somewhere. So that was my first taste and introduction to what alcohol was.
Yeah. Wow. So. All right. So we're near the end of your school. You graduated?
So, 16, I moved to North Carolina, to Fayetteville, North Carolina with my sister. And I did not want to finish school. I didn't. Had my sister not literally twisted my arm behind my back and held it there almost. I would not have. She introduced me to a homeschool program where I could do my work and learn at home.
Yeah.
And then I could go up to the school and take tests. It was actually a New Hope Christian Academy. It's not there anymore. It's closed down in Fayetteville. But I did pretty good there. I got my high school diploma.
Okay.
And during that time that I was doing that, my brother-in-law would let me use his truck, and he had a lawn care business and everything while he'd be off working his job. Or he had a lawn care business, and he still had all his stuff. He was working another job. So I was able to use his truck and equipment and go around and do lawns and stuff. So I was able to buy my school materials and have a little money coming in.
Yeah.
And everything as I did this. So I did finish, and I got a high school diploma because she pushed me. And
Good
so
for
I'm
her.
very grateful that she did that.
Yeah.
Had she not done that, I would have been a dropout and just went on.
So she kind of took on a mom role, sort of.
She did.
Yeah.
She did. She was very good to me.
Yeah.
The problem I ran into there was my brother-in-law he was ex-Air Force. And once again, here I am not wanting to submit to authority. Yep. So I moved into an even worse situation. And not that he was like bad, but if you come from any type of military or Air Force
he was
background,
strict
you're
and
strict.
by the book,
you
and
have
you were
set
not.
rules that you go by, and I was not used to that at all. So it was okay for a while.
Yeah.
And I did the lawn care stuff for a while. I got me another little job at a little North Carolina equipment company place up there, and it was okay, but I wasn't making a whole lot of money. He's like, boy, you got to do better. And he got me a job at a food line distribution center. And I did not want to do that. I hated it. And I was having to go early in the morning and drive, and I just lacked motivation. I didn't want to do it. And one of my friends up there had bought me beer and stuff, and I'd figured out where to go to buy my cigarette. So I was introduced to the beer drinking there, and I remember one morning I was driving. I had one of my trucks. I had actually bought 2 trucks through working and everything. One of them, my engine was messing up, and I didn't have the money to fix that. The other one, I had already been messing around and rolled it over one time. His dad was a mechanic, cut the top off, put a new top and fixed it. And then one morning I'm driving it to this job that I hate so bad. And I would hide my cigarettes in my truck door inside a buckshot box. And I had this Ford Ranger that was jacked up. I had my cigarette out and I was smoking it. And I remember I dropped it. And I'm only like, I think I was 17. I was fixing to turn 18. I was only 17 still. Of course, I go fumbling around like, oh my gosh, my truck's going to catch on fire. And I feel, and I look up, I'm off the road, and I jerk the wheel. And I was headed off this big embankment, and my truck goes sideways, and the tire rolls under because it had the big tires, and that thing went kind of, they said end over end, but it was basically corner over corner. 3 times between light poles, I missed light poles and stuff. Thank God I had my seatbelt on. Thank God I had roll bars in it. And this thing was a twisted, mangled mess.
Oh, wow.
I remember it landed on the driver's side. The whole cab was crushed in again for the second time. I couldn't get out the front because it was all smashed in. I'm laying on my window on this side. Of course, the back glass was behind me, and like all this stuff in my bed was laying all up. And I had a chain and stuff. It slung up inside the cab. I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? You know? I didn't have a cell phone back then. And I remember I got my seatbelt loose and I climbed the best I could. And I was so disoriented. I climbed up and I jumped out of the passenger side door because it's literally laying up on the side. And I hit the ground. I fell over. I was like, I didn't know what to do but just lay there. I'm laying there. I'm like, what in the world did I do? You know? I'm laying there and a vehicle goes by. I'm like, I'm trying to wave. I felt like I didn't know what was going to happen. And my neck was all messed up. And I'm laying there and I hear somebody coming from the other way. I was like, what? You know? And the truck that passed came back and he gets out and he runs over there. And he's like, dude, you okay? And I said, I don't know. He said, man, you have one parking lot left burning on this truck. Everything else is busted out. And he said, I saw it. He said, I'm an off-duty EMS technician headed home from work. He radioed for the ambulance. And I think there's so many instances where I feel like God was looking out for me. Yeah. Even in my stupidity.
Yeah.
And he got me up there. And, of course, everything happened. I was okay. I had to wear a neck brace. Yeah. But at this point, my brother-in-law and sister was like, okay, we've had enough. We've had enough. You got to figure something out. And basically, they told me, you got to call your dad. I was like, no. And so I called Dad. I said, Dad, I need to come back home. And Dad was an educated man. He believed in school. He put me under the agreement. He said, you can come home, but you're going to college. And out of course, an addict, a person in addiction, we're going to agree to anything to get what we want. And I was in a bad situation, and that was the best sounding thing to me at the time that I could think of.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. You know, I wasn't thinking about what I was agreeing to, but I'm getting out of the situation that I'm in right now.
Yeah. Yeah. The next seemingly easy step, right?
Yes, sir.
Always the easier, softer way. So what happens with that?
Well, I made it back to Mississippi. I was able to get the truck back with me, the motor in it. One had a bad motor. It made it back. I was able to sell it. I had a little bit of money in my pocket, and somebody bought it for the body. And I went to college at Perkinston Junior College. And I was working part-time at McDonald's. And at Perkinston, I was smoking cigarettes, but as far as like the alcohol and the drugs and stuff, there was a break there.
Yeah.
There was a break. And I didn't get in a lot of trouble or anything, but I really didn't do that well in college either. I dropped some classes, and my heart really wasn't in it.
Yeah.
And I convinced my dad. I convinced him the next semester. I said, Dad, I have friends up at Jones Junior College in dorms. I said, why can't I go up there and be in the dorms with my friends and everybody? And of course he agreed, but I mean, it was not good for me. Once I got up there into the dorm life, a lot of drinking, going out, partying and drinking and stuff, hanging out on the creek banks and stuff, a lot of alcohol.
Is this where it really takes off for you?
It was the very beginning of it. Yes.
You're on the runway, yeah.
So I go into all this, I'm doing all this, and I'm still driving back and forth and working at McDonald's in Lucedale, Mississippi. On the weekends, then I meet this girl there. And we, of course, get into a relationship. And I ended up quitting my job at McDonald's, and there was a Howard Industries transformer plant in Laurel. I got on there part-time, and I did really well. And I talked to them, and they said, man, you could come on full-time if you want to. So there was my opportunity to drop college and take off. So that's what I chose to do. I went to work there full-time, and shortly after, I ended up, me and my wife, my ex-wife now, we ended up getting married and actually moved to Ellisville.
Now, did she use anything?
She would drink a little, but it was not anything that was problem-causing at all. She would have one or two and cut it off and stop.
Throughout that marriage, did your own addiction take off, or were you able to kind of keep it? Or is that what killed the marriage?
That's what killed it. I was married 20 years.
20 years, okay.
So
I did not expect, I didn't think 20 years. Sorry.
Yeah. And that 20 years, there's a lot that happened there. So we got married, and of course, I was not a follower of Jesus. She was not a follower of Jesus. I had head knowledge of God.
But no heart.
No relationship.
I don't know that you even knew there was such a thing as relationship.
I didn't.
You know?
My dad had he used to read to me, and he had read me the whole Bible. He would read at night to me. He'd read through the whole Bible. I had even said a sinner's prayer, but I didn't understand salvation. It didn't have any meaning to me. I was like, I'm saved. I said the sinner's prayer. I believe there's a God. I didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
I was lost as a goose, as some people would say, you know. And so I in this job, I right like a month before I turned 20, I got married. I think it was somewhere in there. And I was, of course, getting alcohol through who I could anyway. But when I turned 21, I went hardcore drinking. And at the age of 19, I forgot to throw this in there. At the age of 19, I tried marijuana for the first time, and I fell in love with it. And that led 21 years long of heavy marijuana use. That I never let go.
Do you think that the marijuana, because I always want to ask about that particular drug of choice, that it helped you with your nerves and anxiety and maybe not so conscientious when you're around people? What was it for you?
It just felt like when I would use marijuana, it just seemed like it was a calming effect. Like, kind of, it was just, I don't know if I'd use the word that it numbed me, but it made things seem less worse than what they were.
Okay.
I'll say it that way. It was kind of a chill thing. And of course, I introduced a lot of alcohol with it when I would drink. And my type of drinking was let's hurry up and drink and get trashed. And when I would use marijuana with the drinking, it brought that effect on a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I wanted to throw in there too, I forgot to mention this. In school, this was something that happened back in school. I had made my mind up, and I was so curious in the drug education classes that they gave. That was a lot of what sparked a lot of wrong relationships with me and between other people in school, because it opened up a curiosity in my mind. And I'd already been dabbling with stuff. And it opened up the curiosity in my mind. I was like, they're telling me if I try this one time, like crack or something, you're addicted instantly and for life. I'm like...
You didn't believe him?
Well, I believed. But I was like...
It's like a dare.
If it's that good, I want some of it. And that was my way of thinking.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to try that. And they talked about marijuana. I was like... I want to try that. It's like I wanted to try it all. I was like, I want to have these experiences because I felt like I never got to go and do and experience anything. So I had already developed that mindset early. So as opportunity permitted throughout life, I jumped on it.
Okay.
So by the time you get married, what are all the things that you're using? Alcohol, marijuana,
and always pornography?
Anything else?
Pornography was a norm. Alcohol, marijuana. I was in the pills big.
Opiates?
Nortab.
Okay.
Yeah, that was at the beginning of my marriage.
And she wasn't doing anything but occasionally drinking?
Occasionally, not very often. It wasn't very common for her.
Okay.
Okay.
But you already were. That's interesting. So she found herself somebody to fix.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say on her side of the family, there was a lot of, she had been raised around a lot of drinking, a lot of drug use.
There you go. She came
and stuff
honest.
like that. And I found access to a lot of it through her side of the family. Not blaming them for anything.
Sure.
No, you were going to find it regardless.
I made my own decision, and I was going to do what I had to do to get what I wanted.
Right.
But it became an ease of access for me to get a hold of through her family.
So there's a heartbreaking side of the story on her side as well. So for the sake of time, Jamie, though, kind of summarize that 20-year relationship. So you're saying the pornography is still there. There's chemicals there. On the pornography side, does there ever actually become affairs? Do you cheat on her? Are there?
I did.
Okay.
I did. There was a point where I was working in picking in the gravel pit industry, and some of the guys had brought some ladies in, and there was this one lady that I cheated on her with twice.
Yeah.
With this particular lady, I carried a lot of guilt. There was no relationship to it. It was paid.
Right.
Paid sex. I carried a lot of guilt. I carried a lot of shame with that.
Yeah.
And that happened within the first 12 years of our marriage. In that first 12 years of our marriage, up to about 2012, I began using crack cocaine, powder cocaine. I found where I could order bath salts, the illegal bath salts. I found where I could order those and have them delivered in my P.O. box.
Yeah.
It was time for it and pick it up. I was methadone, Suboxone. I had been in Suboxone clinics. I was at 2012, we had built a $265,000 home. I was like 31, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. Looking from the outside in, you would look and say, man, they got it going on, but my life was falling apart. At that point, I was so addicted to crack cocaine, and I was doing the bath salts. I was out there.
Yeah.
I got where I was missing a lot of work, had a good job. do my job pretty good when I'd show up. I was missing a lot of time, and I got to where I was going in high and messed up.
Yeah.
And I got word back that, hey, you're going to get a drug test when you get back through somebody. I don't even remember who it was. And I said, well, you know what? I just want to go back. When you got 2 new vehicles and a $265,000 home and motorcycles and boats and all this stuff, I had become very materialistic.
Well, it's a mirage, right?
And I was trying to fill this empty gap, God-sized hole I had with everything but him.
All the things.
And I just stepped away and didn't go back to work. And this time that I was not in work, you know, she left. And she wasn't giving me any money. She come back and checked on me one time. I wasn't taking care of the dogs. I wasn't even feeding water in the dog. She took the dogs and...
Did you have kids? I didn't.
No,
okay.
I never had kids.
Okay.
She was unable to get pregnant.
Okay. All right.
So we never did. And I think that was a good thing, being that the situation was the way it was.
So of that 20 years of marriage, how many years were you together? It sounds like she leaves at some point.
Well, she left, but while she was gone.
By what?
While she was gone, you know, she came back and checked on me one more time. I had my car loaded up with stuff. I was dragging TVs and stuff out, taking them, trading them for drugs and such. Her and my dad actually signed a mental writ saying that I was an endangerment to myself, and I was. I was going into really bad places trying to get a hold of crack and everything I could get my hands on. And so they picked me up, put me in a suicide cell in George County for a week, and then I got sent off to a secular rehab in Meridian, Mississippi. Where I was clinically diagnosed with polysubstance abuse. Yeah. And it was only a 30-day rehab, and I was in there. And I pretty much fooled all the counselors. I had them thinking that this guy's got it together. He's going to do right when he gets out. And in my own head, I had planned my next run. I got out. My wife come pick me back up. And 4 days later, no, it was 2 days later, I stole $400 out of her purse and went and made a crack run. She was very upset, and she laid the law down with me there. Look, you got to do better, or we're going to get a divorce. This isn't going to go. And so we kind of met on mutual ground that I'm going to do the best I can to stay off the hard stuff. And I did. I white-knuckled it. And it was hard trying to get off the crack and stay off of it and everything. And the bath salts and everything. I struggled for a long time there.
The problem with that is we're assuming there is non-hard stuff. And I know what people assume that is, but it's for an addict, it's all hard stuff.
Yeah, there is no miniature.
I maintained with marijuana, pills, and alcohol.
Yeah. But even you said you white-knuckled it, and it's miserable.
I still wanted to use.
Right, sure. I mean,
I did the best I could.
You're still using.
Yeah.
You just wanted to use something different.
Well, and you would still have the same exact mindset and characteristics. So really, I bet she figured out the hard way that nothing changed because nothing changed here, and you're still doing substances. So you're still going to have some consequences.
Sometime in there, I admitted to her about having the sexual relationship with the other lady. That broke her trust in a way that
you couldn't fix that.
Yeah, that was unrepairable. It never was the same after that. I slowly crept back into methamphetamine use. It was a lot cheaper and easier to get than the crack, and I wouldn't go into such cravings as deep and hard on that as I would, and it would last longer.
I was going to say, well, it lasted longer, and it wasn't that sense of urgency.
Bumping on the head, this went on all the way up to 2020, and she had threatened.
Yeah.
I'm going to divorce. I had friends that I didn't know it when I first made friends with them, but they were gang members. And through the methamphetamine game, I got hooked up with them, and I could show up on the vehicle and money, and we could get a lot of stuff really cheap.
Yeah.
So a lot of that was going on
Yeah.
right there toward the end, and I was staying out at dope houses, not coming home at night. She wouldn't know where I was. She'd be trying to find me. Didn't know if I was okay or not. I was just a madman out there running wild.
What was the straw that broke the camel's back for her?
Well,
And she held on for a long time.
Yeah.
she just had enough.
Yeah.
I think the point where I was not coming home at night a lot of time anymore, she finally threw divorce papers down and then said, like, this is it.
Yeah.
And I remember I was on my hands and knees, like clung on to her, please let me go back to rehab. Please let me, we'll go to marriage counseling.
Yeah.
She said her words were, no, we're not doing this. You're
Yeah.
never going to change. So she followed through with the divorce. She left me some land that we had bought together and a camper. And I moved out there after the divorce. So then I was with no job, and I was by myself, and I was out in the middle of the woods, and I had a lot of connections. And she was intending to do well. She intended to do well and help me the best she could the whole entire time, but really she was enabling me in so many ways. So the fact that I got out there and my truck note was paid for a certain amount of time and everything, and I'm not working or anything, I have all this free time. So I'm having these guys come stay out there with me, or I'm running and staying at their place. At this point, I think she thought the divorce might help to change me.
Yeah.
And what it did was I had no regulation, nobody watching me at all.
You had nothing to hold your feet to the fire or even act like it.
So I went wild.
Yeah.
6 months after the divorce, I found out she had a boyfriend. He was a police officer. I did not like police officers at the time at all. I did not like her having a boyfriend, so I decided it's a good thing for me to go over there and to her house and see about this situation. I downed the 12 pack.
About this situation.
Yeah, I'm like,
That's
I'm
one
gonna
you need to
fix
fix.
this. You know, I couldn't even fix anything. But so I drove over there. And I was very intoxicated. I had bought a 12 pack of Budweiser. That was my thing, my Budweiser, and I drank like 10 of them in 45 minutes on the way over there. So I was feeling it, you know.
Yeah.
Got over there, showed my tail, and we got in a huge fight. He wasn't there.
Before we go any further, let's take a minute to address the man or the woman listening to today's episode and wishing for a better life. Or maybe addiction has completely overtaken a family member or a friend.
You are not alone. As you may know, the Jesus Loves Addicts podcast is produced by the Home of Grace, a Christ-centered addiction recovery program in South Mississippi with over 60 years of experience.
The Home of Grace has residential programs ranging from 30 days to 12 months. With 2 separate campuses for men and women, they are fully staffed with caring individuals who want nothing more than to guide you to a life of recovery.
Services include individual and group counseling, marriage and family counseling, classes, workshops, GED, and workforce training, all grounded in biblical principles.
And because of donations from the community, the cost of the program is incredibly affordable.
Thousands of alumni from across the country can tell you there is no other program in the world quite like the Home of Grace.
If you want to start a new path to recovery, don't wait. Speak with an admission specialist today. Visit homeofgrace.org or call 833-55-GRACE to talk with someone.
That's 833-55-GRACE. Call the Home of Grace today.
But I remember I told her, I said, you know what, I'm going to kill myself. And I had one instance before that where I had took a bunch of stuff, and I woke up the next day, so whatever, it was some pain pills and muscle relaxers and stuff. Thank
that
God
was an intentional attempt at suicide, do you think?
I really didn't know if it was enough to do anything or not, but at the point, I don't
You
think
didn't care
that I
if it
cared.
did. Okay.
And I took it, and I woke up, and I was okay the next day, so I went on with life. This time, I told her I was going to kill myself, and I had my truck out there.
That's really a manipulative move there, isn't it? I mean, saying that to her at that time, were you trying to
kill myself?
Yes.
I had intentions of it this time.
You did? Yeah, it was a real...
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's scary thinking about it, too, because of the way everything didn't work. I had it was a big F-350 dually. I had been having transmission problems with it, but I feel like God really intervened on this, too. I go out there and I fire this dude up and I throw it in gear, and there's this huge oak tree. And I was going to ram this thing as hard as I could and throw myself through the windshield. That was my plan. And the truck would not take off, and it was like stalling. And I was like, what is wrong? And I had it in gear, and I'm like checking it. It's like, and I get it in reverse and it takes off. I look back and there's this huge oak tree behind me. And I don't know how fast I hit it hard. It hurt my neck and my back and stuff, and it bent the frame and totaled the truck out. Of course, there was another trip to jail, and I got aggravated assault, domestic violence, DUI charge, and went to jail. And at that point, I didn't know what was going to happen. My bank account was overdrawn. I just totaled out the only vehicle I had, and I didn't have a job anymore. And she had been helping me, and I went over and showed my tail in her yard. Yeah. And that truck was in her name. And she had been keeping the note and stuff like that. So I'm in jail, and here I am coming off all these substances.
Yeah.
I had been, so my head is in a fog, and I'm in there. And I had another dude that I had been doing drugs with. He ends up getting locked up. I was like, hey, man, what are you doing in here? You know, and him and his wife had gotten into a fight. And so I'm in there, and they come and get me one day, and they said, hey, you have a visitor. And I was like, who is this? And it seemed like this was forever. But it was like a week was off. I was dying. I was like, oh, I got to get out of here. But so they chained me all up. Of course, you got to have all ankle chains and take me out there. And it was my dad's pasture. And, you know, I look back and I think now, he had been coming over, like, get me to tinker with this and that on a motorcycle. And he was trying to befriend me, and he would talk to me about the Lord. I would always tell him, man, I'm good. I'm a Christian. I'd be trying to hide my beer cans, and I'd have cigarette butts laying all over or I'd have marijuana paraphernalia. I'd be trying to hide it or something. He would always come over, and he'd always love on me. He'd always talk to me. And it was him. He said, Jamie, I want to talk to you. I had all the respect in the world for this man.
Yeah.
And he said, I want to tell you a story about a lady. And he slides me this paper. He said, Jamie, he said, this lady right here has a story very similar to yours. He said, she was strung out on drugs. She was doing all kind of crazy stuff. Her family was doing everything they could to try to help her, and she was ignoring it. He said, you know, one day somebody found her laying in her bed in a puddle of blood, and her little girl was jumping up and down on the bed and saying, Mama won't wake up, Mama won't wake up. And he said she was dead. She had overdosed. And he said, Jamie, it's a good chance that something like this is going to end up happening to you if you don't get your stuff together and get your life straight. He said, why don't you get serious about a relationship with the Lord? And he said, will you pray with me? And I said, I will, yeah. And at that time, I don't know how serious I was, but there was definitely a seed planted.
Yeah.
And I knew that was the right thing that I needed to do. I think I was a little hesitant still. I wasn't all in.
Yeah.
He prayed with me, you know, and that lady that he was telling me about, that was his sister. Yeah, and I had no idea.
Wow.
And that really struck something in my heart. It's still.
He wasn't just telling your story. He was sharing his pain with you.
He was. And so my dad comes and bails me out a few days later, which I was surprised. He's 81 at the time. The only person willing to come in there. And I guess I'd burn all my bridges,
Yeah.
you know. And he gets me out and he says, Jamie, you're going to go to the Home of Grace Addiction Recovery Center. And I was like, I didn't know what that was, but I was like, okay. And it sounds better than jail.
Yeah.
So he gets me and he takes me to his house. I spent the night, I think one night. And he helped me get things together. And maybe it was 2 nights, I don't know. But he took me and he dropped me off. And there at that program, about the first 6 weeks of it, to be honest, it's a 90-day program. The first 6 weeks of it, I was in a big brain fog once again, walking around like I was going in the wrong building.
Yeah.
Didn't know where I was so disoriented and confused. But there were a lot of classes there that I sat through that taught a lot of good things about, what a relationship with Jesus was and a lot of other things. And about 6 weeks in, I really started listening. And I said, if I listen to some of this stuff, I think it might help. There's a lot of the gospel being shared. And just a lot of people who had come from similar backgrounds that were doing well now and were actually helping in the program. And that was really inspiring to me. I thought, wow, that's cool, that somebody could come from a background like mine and be in a place like that. I was like, huh. And that caught my attention too. I was like, I don't know, I might, check this out and see. But I think I need to listen and pay attention. So I think at that point, I don't remember. I remember getting through. I have like gaps because there's things I don't remember.
Yeah.
So I remember getting almost to the end of that. And I told my dad, I said, I'm really just now starting to get something out of this. And I was freaking out because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm fixing to have to leave.
And I'm not ready.
I knew I wasn't ready. I was like, I didn't even get as much as I needed to out of this because my head wasn't even clear yet.
Yeah.
And my dad was handling I had a few little bills. It wasn't anything major. He was handling all my lawyer fees.
Yeah.
He was paying my way and everything. I was like, is there any way, you help me go through this second part of it? He was hesitant at first. He's like, okay. And so I made it through the next part of the program, and then opportunity for internship came up, and I was able to do that. So I was in that program for a total of 11 months, I believe. And I built a relationship with the Lord. I did.
Yeah.
I did. I got a job offer, and I took off and left. And I didn't maintain my relationship with the Lord.
You left a lot of it there.
I did. I did not stay plugged in. I didn't stay in my word. I didn't stay in prayer. I didn't allow myself to be open to accountability, any of that. I was out about 5 months probably. And it got bad quick.
Yeah.
It got bad quick. They
say you pick up from where you left off. Right?
Well,
and you left off awful.
At first, I said, I'm just going to drink a little beer.
Yeah.
Then I was back into my Crown and Cranberry. I used to miss that. Then I was, I'm not going to go see the weed dealer, but I'll get the vape from the store.
Yeah.
Then I found the bag of methamphetamine laying in a parking lot at a store. And I picked it up, I took it home, and I tried it. And I opened up that craving again.
It was
that led to me going back, making connections back with old people.
Yeah.
Within a very short period of time, I was having some very bad experiences, hallucinations, a lot of paranoia. I remember I had went to a different county over in Georgia County, and I was at this house, and I'm not really sure how long I had been up. I'm not sure when I had ate last. I'm not sure when I had slept last. And I like wigged out. I thought cops were there, and I remember being under so much stress that I was sweating these sweat bullets, and I passed out, and I woke up the next morning in the middle of our floor with some dude beating on the window, looking through it like, "Are you okay in there? Are you okay?" I got out of there, and I remember I went back to my place, and I had a huge stash there of meth.
So let me, Jamie, just for the sake of time, because this run obviously gets really bad, right? This is, how long does this run last? Because I know it ends up back in treatment, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So how long are you out there before you make that choice?
I was compromising for about the first couple of months, but I probably had about 3 months of hard running again.
Okay. And then how do you end up back in treatment? What happens?
Well, when I leave that house that night, I went back to my camper. That was my next thing I was going to say. I went back, I got into my stash, and I remember I laid back on my bed and I shoved that mess up my nose, and I laid there and I let it drain back. And at first I had this calming feeling come over me, and then it's like all heck broke loose. I remember I started having hallucinations. I wigged out. I shot my camper all to pieces. I had guns. I shot it all to pieces. I ended up out in the yard shooting. I ran. I was in shorts and barefooted and a short sleeve shirt. I took off running, and I had called 911. I thought it was all real. I took off running, and I ran all the way out to a 2-lane highway where I was, beating on neighbors' door, trying to flag cars down. I don't know how somebody didn't shoot and kill me out of the fear of me being a madman.
Yeah.
And at some time or another, I made it back that night. I found my phone. 911 dispatch said they had been at my gate. I was like, oh no. And I was cut up from head to toe. The bottom of my feet were tore all to pieces because I ran on a dirt rock gravel road. And I was cut up from head to toe from the woods. And at that point is when it really set in and got real with me.
Yeah.
I was like, I was in a point of desperation. I said, God, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I grabbed my Bible and I opened it. I went to Proverbs 1 and 2. I read it. It's like it was jumping off the page at me, the conviction. And so I got down there at my bed and I prayed and I said, God, I said, I'm sick of doing this my way. I'm screwing everything up. I said, I want to do it your way from now on. I said, however you want to use me, whenever, wherever, whatever. I said, I don't even care anymore. I said, I'm yours. I flushed all my dope and stuff, threw all the beer and alcohol and everything out.
Wow.
And I said, I'm done, I said, I'm done. And I got out of there and I went to a safe place for 4 days and nights, had some people help me. And 4 days and nights later, I had sold the piece of property I was on to my sister, but she was still letting me live there. I had all this money too. I feel like God dropped. I feel like he said, you think you've always wanted all this freedom and drugs and money that you could do everything. And I feel like he dropped it in my lap and said, all right, see how that works out for you, and gave me a taste of it. And I saw how it went. So I had money. I had blown a lot of it, but at this point, I had some. So I was able to get to that safe place and detox the best I could. And 4 days and nights later, I had a Harley Davidson because I had my stepmom's car out in the yard. I had shot it all to pieces, shot the tire out. I didn't hit my Harley but one time, and it was in the front just on a piece of sheet metal. I was able to get on that thing and take off out of there. But let me tell you, I did not need to be driving a motorcycle. I was so paranoid. But anyway, I got out of there on that thing, and then I ended up 4 days and nights later. I headed back to Home of Grace on it, and I had somebody help me with the application. I took myself back this time. I paid my way in this time. I was serious and I was ready.
Yeah.
This time, I got there and I was so out of my head. I didn't know if I was going to be okay. I couldn't hardly even get a sentence out.
Yeah.
But you know what? They welcomed me with open arms.
Yeah.
I applied myself to the program. I got serious about my relationship with God. And I didn't look back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
I love how you tell that story about the first time you're there, it sounds like that's where you really come to a relationship with Christ.
Yes, absolutely.
But Jesus does not handcuff us to him, right?
No.
And so, it's interesting. I was just having this conversation with somebody. Paul, who wrote most of the New Testament, talks about how he has to die daily. He says, I die daily. And what he's talking about is just taking into account that the flesh is always in opposition to what the Spirit of God wants us, right? And we have to check that. We have to always say, look, I have desires in and of my flesh that do not line up with the desires that God has for me, and they don't end up well for me, right? So you experience that right after the first one. That relationship with Christ was real, but and I think I've shared this on the show before because it's something I heard somebody say, and I like it. It's God is a gentleman. He's not going to put you in a neck hold and make you follow him for he's loving you. He's there. He's right there waiting for you to choose him again. And it's this story of the prodigal, right? We tend to walk away. Man, the flesh trips us up, but he does not walk away. And that's what I hear in your story, right? You walked away. He did not. He was there. He committed to you in that real relationship and was ready when you came back.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Well, and you hit on a lot of things that we have talked about that need to be mentioned especially with addiction recovery, is that what did you stop doing? I left the structure and my routine and my daily things that I needed to do. I left them there, and I did not open myself up to any accountability. So those things that still needed to be worked out, and I feel like when we don't open ourselves up, having battled with the same rebellion, when we're not opening ourselves up to accountability, it's really that part of us that has not died that doesn't like being told what to do.
That authority thing.
Yeah. That old thing. Yeah. But knowing where to go back to, and that mindset that had changed to it's, okay, I'm willing to I know what I tasted there. We were talking right before the show, and you were like, I know what I have now. That once you have seen and tasted that the Lord is good, like, I don't look back. I'm doing this. Jamie, you're doing actually a whole lot of things differently this time. I know that you're involved in ministries and sharing your story. Give us a little bit about that. I know that we're about out of time.
I attend church at Mosaic Church in Ocean Springs, and I love it there. They have a Celebrate Recovery program. They use that material. They run it under the name of Mosaic Recovery, but it's an amazing program. I get the opportunity to teach some of the step study lessons. I lead an open share group for men who struggle with substance abuse issues. Every opportunity I get, and God has made these opportunities possible for me. All the time I get invites. Hey, we'd like you to come share your testimony, and I jump on it every time. I love the opportunity to be able to go and say, hey, this is where I was, this is where I am now, and this is what God has done. It's because of him. I'm part of a group or a community called Broken Chains JC, and basically it's a community of bikers and bike enthusiasts who have found hope and healing in Jesus Christ through Christ-centered recovery. We're active in our own recoveries. We walk alongside each other. We support other people, other recovery ministries, all Christ-centered recovery. We fully support. And, we just share the good news of Jesus and share our recovery journeys with each other and other people to help encourage them, Most definitely, I give my relationship with Jesus the credit. I give him the credit for where I am. Yes, I had to put work in. I had to be willing. I had to humble myself before him. That's what it's all about. Letting that pride go and be willing to submit. And that was my main life problem, period.
Amen.
I still have struggles. I still have areas I'm growing in. That's life. As long as Philippians 1:6 says, he that has begun a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I'm always going to be a work in progress until I go to be with the Lord.
That's right.
But like you said, I've got a hold of something that I'm not willing to let go of this time.
Yeah.
And I know what I got to do to keep it, and that's where I stand.
That's amazing. And I love that your story began with not being able to communicate well, not being able to make or keep friends, but it ends with community and accountability and like an entire family. So
180.
That's literally only the work of God.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's really a visual of repentance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because repentance is turning away, right? Turning away and facing God now, right? Turning away from the world, away from the sin that traps us, and facing God. Right? We turn around, we agree with God that, hey, this is damaging to me. This is sin. This is not pleasing to you.
I'm turning back.
And and so that whole, what she just described, I see that process in you. And it is a process. I love that you said this side of heaven, we're all works in process. And what came to mind was that image of refining as like silver, right?
Yes. Oh,
yeah,
And so that process is, what they used to do is they would heat silver up to 7 times, and the impurities would rise, they'd scrape it, do it again. So you went to this program the first time, you have this genuine relationship with Christ, but there's more purification to be done. And I'm so sorry that it's funny, one of the things that comes to mind that I missed our 100th episode, which was the topic was surrender. And this is what I hear in you. This is what surrender looks like. It's surrendering to the direction of Christ, right? So I love
awesome.
that. Yeah, really, really neat stuff. And Jamie, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your story, even the difficult parts of it, right? Being so open. No doubt there are people out there who need to hear that. And I think one of the things that Jamie's story points out so well, and it's no mystery, there's no depth to what I'm about to say. It's right there. It's very plain to see is, guys, our way, the addiction way, whether that's sex, drugs, whatever it might be, is a fallacy. I've said this before. It's grasping at fool's gold when God is trying to offer you the real thing.
Yeah.
The life of addiction is one of chaos. The life of walking with Christ is one of peace, but I don't want to end there because that sounds fairy tale. It is the peace that surpasses understanding. That's the key to the peace Christ offers you, because it's not a peace that we understand. It's not that he takes you out of a troubled world and somehow puts you in a bubble and you no longer have troubles. It's a peace that surpasses understanding. It's a peace that exists within the trouble you will have in a troubled world. We are still prone to that. We still live in a fallen world. But if you will surrender to him, if you will submit to him, you will find a peace that you don't understand, right? Again, I always point to this because I loved it. Kathryn said this one time that you have to choose your hard. Both paths are hard. It's where they end up that's different. The path of addiction will be harder and harder and harder and harder. The hard path of the Christian walk will be better and better and better and more peaceful in the midst of trials, in the midst of difficulty. Guys, we love you. More importantly, Jesus loves you, and we will see you next time right here on Jesus Loves Addicts.